Alright, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashum, Yahawashi, Bahashum, Kodash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rakaya from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another impromptu lesson. And the title of this lesson is Yahawashi is the welfare of the world. Alright, Yahawashi is the welfare of the world. You know, and I came across this video earlier today from Tucker Carlson, and it's entitled The Secret Cure to Alzheimer's, Depression, and Anxiety. You know, and the spirit's been on me pretty heavy lately to dive deeper into natural cures and health in general. You know, because alongside being increased as spiritual physicians, the Lord has also made brothers into physical physicians as well, through the knowledge of the herbs and the things that the Lord has placed upon the earth. You know, and the more and more research that you do, the more you find out how complete the works of the Lord are. You know, the Lord thought of everything. You know, the works of the Lord are truly whole, they're complete, which makes Yahawashi a physician. You know, the works of the Lord are whole. You know, and the more research you do, the more you figure out how much hell that Esau Edom has created on earth through the improper utilization of the Lord's creation. You know, the scriptures call him in the book of Job 13:4 says, but ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. You know, and the so-called white man is a physician of no value. He's a doctor at best. You know, and that word doctor means to, let's look it up. It says a doctor, a noun. It says down here, it says to make, to appear right, to be seemingly fitting. All right. License to practice. It says, but the definition we want, all right, is to make, to appear right. All right. And with everything that the so-called white man does, especially when it comes to health, you know, he doesn't truly cure anything. You know, he just makes things, he just covers up symptoms, you know, which ultimately lead to other symptoms and other problems. You know, at best, the so-called white man is a doctor. He makes things seem right, you know, by giving a quick answer, you know, or never a cure, which physicians are known for cures. They're known for giving long-term answers to problems, especially when it comes to diseases within the body. And that's why, you know, the Lord calls him a physician of no value, because when you go into this man's health system, everything is false. Everything is of no value. You know, everything that the so-called white man pushes is ultimately to line his pockets. You know, a common saying in this world is one patient cured is another customer lost. And that's how Esau Edom sees the people. He sees them as customers. You know, he sees them as money, you know, goyim, essentially, you know, cattle. And that's why Yahawashi is the welfare of the world, because Yahawashi, you know, is coming with justice and judgment. All right, the Lord isn't going to, you know, see the world as a business. You know, the Lord sees this world as his inheritance, as a garden that needs to be kept, as a gift that needs to be nourished. And that's the same mindset that the Lord has imparted within the remnant. All right, the earth is a gift that needs to be upkept, a garden that needs to be nourished. Now, you know, that's why the Lord refers to us as husbandmen, you know, because the earth is a garden, and currently it's being mismanaged, it's being completely ran down. You know, and I came across this video, from Tucker Carlson, The Secret Cure to Alzheimer's and Depression. And I've been seeing a lot of articles and a lot of videos going into Alzheimer's. I sent an article in the chat a couple of days ago to brothers, going into, which actually is this article. From newscientist.com, and it's entitled "Inhaling High Dose CO2 Clears Alzheimer's Proteins from the Brain." All right, I mentioned this article a couple of days ago amongst brothers, just because I was seeing this a lot. I was seeing, a lot of articles going into Alzheimer's, depression, and anxiety, especially seeing the sentiment in the earth is languish. Everybody's languishing. The world is in a state of languishing and lamentation. All right, because the wicked are in authority, right? This is Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Right now the people are in a state of mourning, all right, because the wicked are bearing rule. All right, depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, a disease in the body in general is a common sentiment, especially amongst, the inhabitants of Babylon the Great. As soon as you go outside, you can feel the low vibration, and the elders and apostles have been speaking about it a lot recently, which is something that you really, if you're spiritually in tune, you can feel it. Everything is out of whack. Everything is out of course. And it seems like, more and more as the days go by that things are getting worse. The vibration is worsening. It's getting lower, especially amongst these people. When you see these people, their vibration is at an all-time low. You go outside and you look at creation, the colors are no longer, there's no vibrancy to creation. Everything is dull, everything is dull in nature. It's dying, it's withering away. And the scriptures speak about that in 2 Ezra, the 14th chapter, about how things will be weaker through age. Let me get that instead of quoting it. This is 2 Ezra 14 and 17. It says, "For look how much the world shall be weaker through age, so much the more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein." All right, and we live in a weak age. All right, and it's getting weaker. All right, the world is getting weaker as it ages because of improper management, and evils are steadily increasing. All right, first and foremost, we live in a valley of shadow of death. All right, this is a very low place. All right, Babylon is a very low place on all aspects, to the mentality, the vibration, the mindset, the philosophies, the religions, all right, the people, the morale. All right, this is a very low place, and although we live in the valley of shadow of death, the Lord has given us the spirit to not fear any evil, and to not succumb to the evil, Lord willing, we're the elect. The Lord is giving the spirit to the remnant to not succumb to this lower state, because it's easy to succumb to this. It's easy to succumb to the wiles of this world, and we see examples of it every single day. But that's why, again, Yahawashi is the welfare of the world, starting with the remnant, because with the spirit that the Lord has imparted within the remnant are fighting. All right, they're fighting this vibration that the devil has created, against the wiles. They're fighting against the wiles of the devil. All right, and as it stands this day, the elect are winning that battle. Lord willing, we are of that number, but the elect are winning that battle. The more and more this place continues to deteriorate and decompose, the more and more the elect are increasing in faith and hope. The more and more the spirits of the elect are being fortified, man. And through the spirit, it's a miracle. Brothers are miracles, literally in the flesh. Because with all the devices that were devised against us, there's no way we should be walking on the earth right now. There's no way we should be in good health, in good spirits. There's no way in hell we should be where we are right now. It's all through the glory and the magnificence of Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi. Truly, it's a wonderful work, like it says in Habakkuk, the 1st chapter. This is a marvelous work that is being done before the eyes of the people. And even though they see it and they're being told, they don't understand. These people really don't understand all the chips that were set against them. When you go into, the healthcare system in general, you have something called the AMF, all right, which was created by the Rockefellers, which basically, dictates or puts a stipulation on cures. All right, it basically put a ban on cures. I put the clip up on my channel a while back. It's probably still up. But under the AMF Federation, all right, it is illegal to produce a cure, because every cured patient is another lost customer. And what the so-called white man has done through his pharma, and his cures, is create functioning fiends, through the overusage of pills, and creating pill dependency, amongst the people, which in turn has increased anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, and I wanted to get into this, Alzheimer's disease, because one of the cures that these so-called scientists are coming to find here in these latter days is an exposure to lithium, as well as inhaling high doses of CO2, as well as seed exposure, and different avenues, which we'll get into here in a second, are all known avenues to reduce the Alzheimer's cells within your brain, which are all natural resources. They are all things that come from the earth. These are all things that the Lord created and completed while he was completing his work. It's like him outside, got these flies, and they got demons on them. But I want to play a little bit of this video. I'm gonna grab that article, and we'll get a little bit more. What one is that find into your life?
No, and that is essentially the center of the pharmaceutical industry in Switzerland.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and I was there and said, I want to show that lithium is essential. And the proof is now in my book, The Conspiracy Against Lithium. It's the first proof ever that lithium is an essential trace element, meaning that if you have a complete leg, you wouldn't be able to live. If you reduce it in animals, for example, it reduces their fertility. The newborns, the ones which are born, are smaller. The ones, many don't survive the first few months.
And that's why, the scriptures speak about women bringing forth monsters. All right, a part of that has to do with the deficiency that Esau Edom has created in the earth. That's why we have to go to Whole Food stores, and health stores to get vitamins, to put on top of more vitamins, just to get the bare minimum that our body needs, instead of being able to go to the fruits of the earth, all right, to get what our body needs to sustain itself. All right, Esau Edom has effectively created a deficiency in the earth through his mismanagement of the resources, his piss poor mismanagement of the resources, might I add. He's created a deficiency, and it's by design to keep the slaves weak, to keep the people weak and in a low vibration. All right, but it hasn't worked for the elect. That hasn't worked for the remnant. But that deficiency is a part of the reason why these women are bringing forth monsters. All right, the children can't even last a couple of hours, a couple of days out of the womb, because they had no chance in the womb. In the womb, they were being deprived of their of the nutrients that they needed to grow and sustain themselves.
if they have a lack of lithium. Not a complete lack, just a reduction. A complete lack is very difficult to achieve because lithium is everywhere. But you can, of course, create artificially a deficiency in animals and has detrimental effects.
How would you create a deficiency in people?
In people, we have already a deficiency. We live already a deficiency. So if you assume you need 1 milligram of lithium a day, which is the dose where you have the lowest suicide rates, the highest longevity. So if your tap water has, let's say, 500 microgram of lithium, it's half a milligram per liter. This is, it's like a quarter gallon at water, Then if you live in an area where this is the case, then you have a longer life with less diseases. You also have a much reduced risk of Alzheimer's. We already discussed that.
Yeah.
So longevity, Alzheimer's risk, all depend on the amount of lithium you have in your tap water. And this is, of course...
And this, translates far past just Alzheimer's. The more and more you live around flourishing resources, flourishing creation, the Lord's creation in general, all right, the healthier your life is. The more longevity you have pertaining to life, all right, because you're utilizing the things that the Lord placed upon the earth to sustain us in the first place. But Esau Edom has complicated everything. He's made a formula. He's came up with a formula and a calculus problem to everything on the planet Earth. When really everything is simple. Everything isn't rocket science. Excuse me. But he's created a whole formula in the earth that has ultimately destroyed it. It's destroyed it. And he's created a hell of a deficiency by design. The scriptures say in Proverbs 4:16, for they sleep not except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. So they have to, in order to function, they have to have something and someone fall. They have to cause somebody to fall, especially when it comes to Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. They have to have some form of shortcoming to fall our way in order for them to sleep well at night. And that's why we see all the devices, that we're subject to today. Now, that's why we see it. That's why we experience it. Because they can't sleep unless they cause another to fall. And this is the ruler that's set in place. This is who people regard as God. This is who people regard as a philanthropist or this benevolent character, the ruler of the earth. This is who people regard. This is who 2/3 of the nation of Israel want to continue to rule. This is who they want to rule. This is who they want to govern their children. Speaking about the children, man, I'm doing a lot of research on that as well. And I went to ChatGPT and I typed this in, and you could read it. I'm not going to say it for the purposes of this video being taken down. This is not medical information. But I typed in how many shots total do children receive now compared to the 60s. And you can read down here, it says about 5 to 10 in the 60s. Jumping to 2026 is about 50 to 60. With 15 to 16 plus illnesses that they need to cover compared to 5. So you got to ask yourself, if we're progressing according to the so-called white man, with his technological advancements, with his medicinal advancements, his philosophical advancements. If the world is advancing according to the so-called white man, then why is health decreasing? Why is the longevity of life decreasing? Why is the quality of life decreasing? Why is the mental state of the world in a steady decline if we're progressing? It's because we're not truly progressing, man. And under these stipulations, under these conditions, there will not be another generation. There will not be another generation. That's why the Lord said in Matthew the 24th chapter, if the Lord didn't speed up the days for the elect's sake, there would no flesh be saved. If the Lord didn't speed up the times, there wouldn't be a second or third generation after this one. Under these conditions, it's literally impossible. It's literally impossible to sustain 2 or 3 more generations after this current one. Resources are steadily being depleted. All right. Languishing is steadily increasing. The new generation is steadily being indoctrinated and and getting a life siphon out of them. I mean, you can't sustain this, man. It's you can't sustain this. You know, I was also looking up the autism rates, you know, within adults and children. You say every 1 in 31 children in the United States has autism, and every 1 in 45 adults over 18 have autism. You know, and they say that's because of that whole jab situation in 2020, which a lot of these diseases of the body increased as a product of what was given out in 2020. You know, we even heard some testimonies of some guys who were so-called in the truth, how they lost the faith. You know, they said they felt the spirit leave them after they took that Jabberwocky, man. You know, but this is why we need Yahawashi. Because with all these conditions that we face, the only answer is Yahawashi, man. That's the only answer. The only solution to this problem that we're facing is Yahawashi coming to establish his dominion on the planet Earth and establishing the 144,000 underneath him, right alongside King David. Okay, that's the only solution to the problems that we're facing right now. You know, and only the remnant can see it now. But eventually the world will see the necessity behind Yahawashi's rulership and the governing body, all right, that 144,000 governing body under King David. Okay? Eventually the world will come to realize their welfare through Yahawashi. This is Jeremiah 23 and verse 5. It says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth," which is something that the earth is desperately lacking. All right, there's a reason why we're experiencing hell on earth. It's because judgment is not present. Justice and judgment is not present. All right, that's why we're in this extended state of hell on earth. That's why the fire is increasing, because justice and judgment is not present. Saved through, a little small remnant, but it's not present. So we need Yahawashi to come and establish that justice and judgment, all right, and instruct the people properly in order for the world to prosper, all right, in order for the welfare of the nation of Israel, first and foremost, all right, and afterward, the welfare of the world. This is Sirach 10 and verse 1. "A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. As the judge of the people is himself, so are all his officers. And what manner of ruler the city is, such are all they that dwell therein." And the ruler of this present city is an idiot. That's why, these people in Babylon are idiotic. That's why they have no knowledge, and they carry themselves like zombies. It's because the ruler of the city is the ultimate zombie. He's the ultimate example of a man with no knowledge. It says, "The unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited." All right, and the cities now are becoming desolate, and that's because an unwise king is in rulership. You see? So when the wise are set in that stead, the cities are going to be inhabited in righteousness. All right, the Lord said that he created the earth to be inhabited. All right, this earth was meant to be inhabited. All right, this earth was meant to be inhabited and enjoyed. We're supposed to marvel at the Lord's works, at his creation, at how complete and whole the works of the Lord are. We're not supposed to be in languishing, man. We're not supposed to be under low vibrational, low vibrations 24/7. It's fucking ridiculous. It says the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable. All right, when coming into that due time where the Lord is setting over it one that is profitable, all right, which is Yahawashi and 144,000. All right. Verse 10, it says, the physician cutteth off a long disease, and he that is today a king tomorrow shall die. All right, and that long disease is 2/3 of the nation of Israel, and chiefly the so-called white man. All right, the Lord is coming to cut off this long disease that is Esau Edom. All right, and he that is today a king tomorrow shall die. All right, the physician is coming to cut off that long disease. All right, because the works of the Lord are whole, and what the Lord is coming to bring to the earth is completeness, all right, wholeness and righteousness. But with that being said, I just want to cover this real quick. Lord, when this is edifying unto you elect, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahawashi, Bahasham Rakakodash, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Grace and peace to you elect. Shalom.